Welcome to Treacherous Trap Tuesdays. This is DMG on the 7D System channel, and in this video we're going to talk about the Catapult Trap. It's fiendish and it's fun. So if you're enjoying these videos, consider subscribing on patreon.com/7dsystem to financially support this channel. You can also click the like button and click the bell next to the subscribe button to receive notification of new videos. With that all out of the way, let's get down to Treacherous Trap Tuesdays and the Catapult Trap. This one has multiple different uses in terms of damage, but the way I'm going to use it is more one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a party, and that is to split it. The Catapult Trap is designed to rid the party of one of their members. How do you obfuscate a catapult? Well, the catapult basically needs to be built into the floor, and it's going to fling someone through the ceiling, through a portal, or through something so that they end up somewhere else. The floor itself has a bit of is lighter. There's a mechanism at the other end that's going to push the players up. So again, obfuscating the floor are very important. Whatever the floor is, it's probably preferable that this happens on a wooden floor because wood is lighter than stone. You can of course obscure the flingy part of the catapult itself, by having the flagstones, but this is not terribly important. What is important is the lure. Once again, we need to lure the characters down a certain pathway in order to get them to trigger this trap. You may not want the first person to trigger the trap. You may want this to trigger with the last person. So the first person may walk further down the passage, they step on a trigger, and the person who's 2 or 3 people back gets flung by the catapult. But why are they walking down the passage in the first place? Here we can start to think about interesting sounds that could be made that would lead people to want to investigate. So typically these would be things like the sound of water, the sound of metal clinking, anything that would sound interesting to a character where they would want to explore that region. Again, you could have wind that's making a musical sound. Anything, there's a mechanical device around a corner further ahead that is creating this sound, and that's going to lead them down this corridor. Now, above the trap would be a hole in the ceiling, okay? That's where the person is going to be flung through. So the first person walking through may actually observe this shaft that's at an angle in the ceiling. And they could stand there all day and investigate and have no idea why this shaft exists there. But, again, very interesting, because by the time they find a trigger, the person at the back is the one that's being sent up the shaft. So there's no real reason to actually obscure that shaft in any way, shape, or form. It actually, they could investigate and, try to climb up there. Doesn't matter. So the trigger in this case could be something which is traditional to a catapult, and that is a rope that is cut. So we could have a cord across the corridor, and so the thief or whoever discovers it, they may attempt to disable it. If they fail to disable it, the person who's 3 back still gets flung. So there's still an opportunity for the trap to actually get set off. You may also want to incorporate this into your game as a way of countering a whole group of villains at the end point. So for instance, they discover this trap and they're actually in the end point where the person would arrive after the arc of their catapultness. There may be enemies there that would normally attack them, but if they put a barrel of flaming pitch onto that and then cut the trigger, they now can use that to their own advantage. So not only a trap does it have a use in terms of splitting the party, it also has a use in terms of destroying the enemies on the other side, making it a very interesting little thing to use in any kind of dungeon or castle setup. So the containment is they're essentially in this corridor, and the arc of their trajectory is a curved passageway through the ceiling. So there'll be a perfect arc and land at some point. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a room directly ahead. The catapult could shoot sideways and they get flung to a room somewhere else to the west instead of the north that they were heading. When they land on the other side, the destination, that is effectively when the victim is trapped. And there could be a whole bunch of other people that are trapped there as well, and they may be starving and they may go, well, we need to eat this guy because, you know, he's the first food we've seen in a while, which again creates a very interesting dynamic. You could have a whole bunch of zombies or something in there that, you know, ravenous beast. It doesn't matter. Hunger should play a key role in this, and that's the reason why, you know, all these things are attacking the victim. Once again, this is all about separating a member of the party. The party now has a goal. They need to find this person. They need to attempt to communicate to find out where they are. This really changes the dynamic of the game. All the screaming and shouting can attract more monsters. A whole bunch of stuff is going to go wrong, and this little mechanism can be a great catalyst to really changing the dynamic of how your dungeon is working. The effect may not actually be damage, so the person may be flung up into this curved piece of architecture, and they may actually land gently on the sliding down slope and actually slide all the way down into the containment on a slick stone surface or a slick wood surface. It doesn't matter. So they could attempt to stop themselves and be stuck inside this this arched pathway to the containment, but it doesn't really matter again because this is really designed to make things more interesting and to separate them from the party. The damage itself, falling damage if they're coming out the other side, or they're being attacked by things on the other side. So the damage there, you can take that into account, as it doesn't need to actually do damage itself as the trap. If you don't want to split the party and you just want the person to take impact damage, the catapult just flings them into a wall. And that's good enough. That's good enough to do significant damage to someone, but it's only doing damage to one person, and it becomes problematic in terms of the reset, which we're going to talk about now. So disposal is the room itself that they find themselves in. It could be a jail cell or something, you know, from the outside it's just a cage, but there's a hole in the ceiling and all these victims fall into this cage where they try to eat each other because they're locked in there for such a long time. So you could have lots of bones and rotting meat and items of all types lying around. And this is really almost a fight to the death kind of scenario. And what you would do is each round the person fights, and then the rest of the party does some things, and the time trigger, so the ticking clock you should always have in your game, as this person is taking more and more and more damage, so they have to quickly try and find them. And of course they then find this cage or this room with a portcullis or something like that, and there needs to be a way for them to open it from the outside. So they can find a key, or they can lift the gate, or they can lift the portcullis, or they can bend the bars, or they can use a lever. These are the sort of elements you need to leave lying around in the dungeon to assist them to get out. They may even find the goblin that holds the keys, and they need to get the keys from him. So the way this trap can really be adapted is that, you know, you may, while the party is running around trying to find them, someone else may trigger the trap and a new person gets introduced. So if you find that the player easily dispatches of whoever's in the cage at the end, you can, while the rest of the party is trying to find them, you could introduce another victim into the works. So it could be a rust monster that was crawling around the dungeon. It could be something more sinister. It could be undead that just, you know, mindlessly walked into the trap. There's lots of ways that you can just quickly reintroduce something else to again keep that clock ticking. Because otherwise, just a guy sitting in a room waiting for stuff to happen. And of course, reset. There needs to be a mechanical system for the catapult to reset itself. So a lot of clockwork, and dum 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 dum, it resets itself. Now, of course, when you've got the trigger, which is a cord that gets pulled, there may be a new cord that resets out of the ground. So, you know, it threads a new one, almost like a sewing machine. A thing comes out and resets a new tripwire each time. Or, of course, you can use a pressure plate or something, but the sewing machine thing is quite cool because you can have a massive spike come out of the wall with a new tripwire and go through the rogue's foot. So it's in itself, the reset is a trap that also gets set off and causes damage, which again makes it all the more interesting and fiendish. So thank you for joining me for another Treacherous Trap Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any other ideas for this catapult, put them in the comment section below. Have a great argument, and you can check me out on Facebook and Twitter /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// and I'll see you in the next Treacherous Trap Tuesday.